Have you been following the news of the caravan of immigrants moving through Mexico who are bent on getting into America illegally if necessary? This is one of the most exquisite, choreographed dances of activists and governments that I have seen in years. We're going to look at it in depth. I can advise the protesters, the immigrants. I can advise the U.S. government. I can give all kinds of advice. You know why? I know how they think. That was me not too long ago. No, not an illegal immigrant. Stay with me. The migrants call themselves Migrant via Cruz, which means migrants or immigrants in the way of the cross. So for those of you who come from a Catholic or an Orthodox or an Episcopalian background, or even Methodist, liturgical background, you know that there are the stations of the cross, and you can go to Jerusalem, and there is the way of the cross. And, you know, we've heard the song, the Via Dolorosa. So they're positioning themselves as these poor people, which they are, who are suffering, which at some level they clearly are, who are simply trying to make it to freedom. Now, I'm going to hop all over the place here as we discuss this on the program. And I'm asking you, if you have an interest in this kind of stuff, to stay with me, because I have led protests. I have led confrontations with police. I've done things that we deliberately set out to provoke a crisis, knowing that no matter what happened, it was a win for us. Didn't matter if it was we got arrested, didn't matter if we went free, didn't matter if the police caved in, didn't matter if the police were brutal. It was always a win for us. So in many ways, these activists are, in fact, they have put themselves in a position where it's a win-win. But we're also going to look at the political impact in America. So stay with me. All right. So if I was advising the immigrants, which I'm not, because I do believe that we need to have a wall, I believe we need to have borders, but if I was advising them, I would say to them to do exactly what they're doing. Just keep moving north, no matter what. No matter what. And their dream come true. All right, I'm telling you how to get into their head. I'm not saying I agree with this, but I'm telling you what their dream come true is. Their dream come true is to get to the American border and to either have some kind of a conflict where they are victimized by U.S. border officials or Mexican border officials, or where they just walk in and the U.S. immigration people say, okay, come in, like they do every day with literally thousands of Mexicans. Their ultimate goal is not simply, this group of activists, their ultimate goal is not simply to get these people in this caravan into America. Their goal is to alter immigration policy, to make it easier for them to be considered refugees, make it easier for them to be considered asylum seekers. So as you watch the news clips, depending on your news sources, it'll talk about the fact that they're trying to position themselves as people who need asylum. Now, I'm not sure what asylum you need if you're from Guatemala or Honduras or El Salvador. One of the discussions on one of the videos had to do with that the drug lords were making their lives difficult, or that they had lost a family member, some horror happening to them. So why do they not have documentation? Do they have any proof that they're victims? All these questions are going to start to come up. But at the end of the day, their mission is to alter public policy. You have to understand that. And there's a whole bunch of other things that they're trying to do along the way. They're trying to get publicity, which they're succeeding at. They're trying to have people feel compassion for them. And they deserve compassion. Let me tell you something. One of the reasons that I tread lightly when we talk about immigration is because of the words of our Lord. Jesus said, I was stranger, you took me in. I was naked, you clothed me. I was hungry, you fed me. I was in prison, you visited me. The scripture warns, be careful how you treat strangers. One of the most terrifying threats in the Bible is where God says, be careful how you treat orphans and widows, because if you treat them poorly and they cry out to me and I hear their cry, I will make your wife a widow and I will make your children orphans. God says, I'll kill you. All right? So we need to tread lightly when we're dealing with these people. And that's why I speak about them and speak about this topic with the fear of God, because it's important as Christians. But so is protecting the borders. We have a legitimate right given to us by God to maintain the borders of our nation, our security, our laws. I'm going to take a break. So I'm going to talk to you about the political fallout for the president, the potential political fallout for the Mexicans, and if I was advising the president, if I was advising American officials, what would I do? Man, Chuck Schumer, these people, they're all rolling dice, people. I'm telling you right now, when you take DACA and the building the wall, all this, people are rolling dice left and right, and they know that if it goes wrong for them, it could be a huge victory for the other side. Whether it's the Democrats or the Republicans or Donald Trump saying, I want to build a wall. Everyone has a lot to lose here. Don't go away.
Today, many so-called Christian intellectuals believe that the God of evolution used billions of years of death and destruction to evolve the bodies of the first human beings. Then, they simply declare the theory of evolution as fact to justify their unproven scientific fallacies. By the grace of God, more and more Catholics are rejecting this modern-day mythology in favor of the traditional doctrine of creation, as recorded by the Bible, and believed and taught by all the fathers and doctors of the Church. To find out how sound theology and natural science confirm the sacred history of Genesis, visit the Colby Center for the Study of Creation, and be sure to check out our bookstore, which has titles like I Have Spoken to You from Heaven, A Catholic Defense of Creation in 6 Days, and A Catholic Assessment of Evolutionary Theory. That's the Colby Center for the Study of Creation.
Welcome back to the program, friend. I'm Randall Terry. This is going to sound really dark, okay? But I'm telling you the way the activists think. Now, in case you don't know, there's live footage. There's people traveling from the media with the caravan. Now, as of early this morning, the Mexican government said that it is not going to allow these people to reach the American border. It's going to give them passes, some of them for 7 or 30 days, and they're free to move about Mexico anywhere they want. So right off the bat, I read that and I thought, well, isn't Tijuana still part of Mexico? So if they give them a permit to stay anywhere they want in Mexico, they are in effect saying, yes, you could travel all the way to the north. I mean, you're legal here where we've granted you this temporary visa. So the Mexican government, because President Trump said in one of the tweets that NAFTA would be threatened, a North American Free Trade Agreement, all right, which is the trade agreement that Bush the Elder created, which helped destroy a lot of American businesses and send a lot of jobs away, never to return, went to Mexico. So President Trump said NAFTA would be threatened if they let these people reach the border. All right, so the Mexicans have their own internal border controls, and they say, oh, we're not going to let them reach the border. We're going to give them visas. Some of them are going to be told they have to go back home in 10 days, but their visas will allow them to remain in Mexico anywhere they want. So part of this is bold-faced duplicity, hypocrisy. All right. This is going to sound really dark, but the worst case scenario is the best case scenario for the migrant movement. You have to remember that the people that are on their way here, they're a part of a greater movement. It's a political movement that has adherents in Central America, in Mexico, and millions in America. There are millions of people in America, many of them illegal immigrants, who believe that people should just be able to come and go across the border. And if somebody in Mexico wants to move here, that they should just be allowed to come. All right? I do not share that view. So their worst case scenario is their best case scenario. And their worst case scenario is that they get to the American border and violence happens against these immigrants. Now, I want you to understand, the leaders of this movement, people with money, people with communications, people with eyes and boots on the ground, they're watching this intently. And what they want is a standoff at the U.S.-Mexican border. That is what they want. Make no bones about it. The Mexican government is saying that it's going to give some type of special visa to pregnant women, people with disabilities, people who are sick. So those people are going to be allowed to continue. Now remember, their ultimate goal is to get to the U.S. border. So if they get to the border, if people with disabilities, if pregnant women get to the border, and any number of sad stories, people who have a true story of heartache and difficulty, if they make it to the border, and any of the people who have also been granted these visas to be anywhere in Mexico that they want, they make it to the border and they try and cross the border, and the U.S. government does not allow them to enter, well then, for many people, we now look like the bad guys. President Trump is a hard-hearted, mean-spirited, villainous dictator who has no compassion for these poor pregnant women and these poor people with disabilities who just want to come to America. But as I said, worse yet would be better yet for them. And worse yet would be that they are met with some type of force. Now, I was talking with one of the members of our team last night, and they said, well, if they start getting beat up by these people, our border guards are going to shoot them. And I said, they are absolutely not going to shoot them. They are not going to draw a firearm. The worst mistake that an American in uniform could make would be to use lethal force against one of these migrants. Does Kent State ring a bell with anybody? Kent State, remember? For dead in Ohio. The worst case scenario for the U.S. government is that lethal force or unjust force was used. Now, there'll be 1,000 cameras present. I guarantee you, a lot of these immigrants have been given phones, burner phones, iPhones, cheap, iPhone 3s, 4s, 5s. They're going to be told, video everything. Because if the U.S. does something wrong, if the U.S. slips up, the worst case scenario for these immigrants is also their best case scenario. Because then we look like monsters. And then President Trump's hope for the wall will be dashed. I'll talk more when I come back. Don't go away. You got to get inside the head of these people. Have Muslim terrorists hijacked the peaceful religion of Islam? Or is there more to the story? The answer lies in the life of one man, Muhammad, the founder of Islam. Muslim terrorists see themselves inside a 1,400-year-old story, a narrative that focuses on specific events in the life of Muhammad. We are going to look at Muhammad's life using their most sacred literature. We will look at Muhammad at the Battle of Badr. We'll see him deal with those who mock him. We'll see the times when he used deception. We'll witness Muhammad's anti-Semitism. And yes, we will discuss Muhammad and his teachings concerning sex, slavery, and jihad. Friend, if you want to understand Islamic terrorism, get this series today. So President Trump is putting pressure on the Mexican government, but he's also putting pressure on members of Congress, and he's saying, use the nuclear option. Be done with this. Now, for those of you who don't speak the Beltway parlance, the nuclear option means end this stupid filibuster rule. The filibuster rule is not in the Constitution. It's a Senate rule, okay? It's a rule that senators made almost 200 years ago, if my memory is correct, to keep states from being overrun by the federal government and have like firewalls built into the Senate. What the filibuster rule now means is that if you can't get 60 votes, never mind a majority, okay? That's what the Constitution says. Constitution says a majority. But the Senate said, well, let's add to that. And let's have it be 60 votes. If you can't get 60 votes, then you can't pass any legislation. You're not going to be able to get people appointed to various positions, etc. So it's degenerated to the nuclear option. Use the nuclear option. Because somebody along the way in the last 15 years or so used that phrase in discussing ending the filibuster rule. Just blow the thing up. So it looks and sounds ominous. Oh, the nuclear option, that's terrifying. President Trump is asking for the nuclear option. Oh. It just means end the filibuster rule. That's all it means. And it's probably long overdue. If you're a regular viewer of this show, you know I've been telling Mitch McConnell, not that he listens to me, to just end the filibuster rule and be done with it, okay? Let the party who's in the majority own their legislation, own their picks to the federal judiciary, own what it is that they want to vote for, own what it is that they don't want to vote for. The filibuster rule gives bad guys cover, and it gives cowards cover. So President Trump is saying, just fund the wall and be done with it. We control both members, we control both houses of Congress, and we control the presidency. No matter what anybody thinks, Donald Trump won the presidency in part because he promised to build a wall, okay? He promised to build a wall. And it wasn't that we need a wall, it was that we need border security because of drugs, terrorists pouring into the country, coming into the country, sneaking into the country, walking into the country in broad daylight and no one stopping them. He promised to build a wall. And he wants to build a wall. And oh look, it's Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan, the Speaker of the House, both Republicans, both the leaders of the majority in their respective houses. It's those two cowards and those two treacherous cowards who do not have the moral fortitude and the love of their country to do the right thing. They love money. They love prestige. They love the people that they hang out with at the fancy dinner parties and the places where they go to drink and hang out. And it's not just those two, it's the other upper echelon. And maybe it's that they love some of their big donors who are part of the Better Business Bureau. You have to remember, there's a lot of big business that does not want tight border control. They need these workers. They need low-income workers. They do. So some of them are not happy with President Trump saying, do you understand? Let me tell you something, and I know I have to take a break. We don't even know right now how many tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of homes are owned in America with a mortgage that are owned by illegal immigrants. You understand that if these people are deported, their house is suddenly empty. If enough of them are empty at the same time in some locations, what's it going to do to the value of housing in that area? It's going to make it go down because suddenly there's going to be a lot of houses available. And then what? Then the banks might have houses back on their hands they have to foreclose on where they're upside down, where the mortgage is higher than the value of the house because of the deflated value of the houses. Why? Because these people were told to go home. Why? Because we enforced our immigration laws. So suddenly you have people in the banking industry who might have winked and nodded and given people loans that they shouldn't have had, who don't want border control enforced because of what it will do to the banking industry. And then just play that scenario out in any number of industries, and you'll understand why there are some people who are very wealthy who are putting money ahead of the security of our country. They're more interested in their pocketbooks than they are protecting our borders. I'll be right back. What Would Mohammed Do? Islamic Terrorism Explained is the best movie series documentary ever produced on the life of Muhammad and Islam. How do I know? Because it's what critics are saying. John Moore, radio host and author, said, "I learned more from What Would Mohammed Do about Islam and Islamic terrorism than I've learned from everything I ever read and watched in my entire life." Best-selling author Dr. Bill Warner said, "What Would Mohammed Do is the best movie series, TV production on the life of Muhammad and Islamic terrorism that has ever been produced." Friends, this is what the experts are saying. No one has ever done what we've done. I encourage you to get 1, 2, 4 copies. Call 304-289-3700. That's 304-289-3700, or order it at the address or the website that you see on the screen. Friend, we have a series that will help you and those you love to have an impact on this country. It's called Insurrecta Nex. That's Latin for revolution against the killing of innocent people. This is the history, the philosophy, and the theology of social revolution in America. We look at the Stamp Act, the Boston Tea Party, the abolition of slavery, the abolition of child labor, women's voting rights, the civil rights movement. All of them have this in common: courage, sacrifice, dedication, and in-your-face tactics and rhetoric. That's one of the reasons that we've been losing the culture wars the last 40 years, is because the bad guys are using these tactics and we aren't. We will send you this 14-part TV series along with these manuals for students, a teacher's facilitator guide for only $40. Go to 304-289-3700, 304-289-3700. If I was advising President Trump, which I'm not, but if somehow I got to him, I would say, number one, have all of your Border Patrol, when these people get here, have every single last one of them be either Hispanic or fluent in Spanish, so that they can talk to the people. If you create a glut at the border, what is one of the first things that's going to happen? What's going to happen? These people need what? They need a bathroom, and they need food and water. I mean, the human body dictates a lot of what can or cannot happen. So if you get all those people there and they're just not allowed to cross, they're going to need food, they're going to need water, they're going to need a toilet, and so you just say it's back that way in Mexico. We could even say, here, we're going to hand it to you. It's just going to be 2 miles back. You know, ask the Mexican government for permission to fly a helicopter over the border and just put down some water. I know that's not going to happen, but you get my point. My point is, you have to greet them with kindness. I would also tell the president, keep on focusing on Mexico. Mexico stands a lot to win with this, because these are not Mexican citizens predominantly. They're people from Central America. And Mexico gets to have third-party victims come to the border and have those mean Americans tell them you can't come in. So by Mexico saying we're going to stop the caravan, we're not going to let them go up, but we are going to give them all between 7 and 30-day visas to travel anywhere they want in Mexico, that is in effect saying that they can come. And the other thing I would tell President Trump is, say, Mr. President, I would focus on, we want compassion for these people and for all the victims of the world, but we need to protect our borders. We are Americans, And we have an obligation. He has an obligation as the paternal figurehead to care for the people of his country. And I would focus like a laser beam. I would be dragging Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell in, kicking and screaming, saying, fund the wall now. Don't stop pushing for the wall. Use this moment for that.